Hi, this is Rick Julian, author of The Way, and this is commentary on verse 2. All things require their opposite: darkness, light; sound, silence; high, low; before, after. The necessity of opposites, the mechanics of how they operate in our lives, is just a powerful piece of wisdom. In our lives, we often wonder, why do bad things happen to us? Right now, as I record this in August of 2020, we are in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So when the Tao Te Ching says the high requires the low, the COVID pandemic is a low. The entire world is engulfed in a struggle. People are locked in their homes. We aren't able to socialize in the way that we've become accustomed throughout our lives. We're having to wear masks. We're having to be hyper vigilant about hygiene. Our children are at home rather than in school. We don't have concerts. We aren't able to go and spend time with our friends and our loved ones inside of restaurants, inside of movie theaters, etc., etc., etc. These are low times. But here is the fundamental value of this low time, of this darkness, of this before. It sets a contrast for what will follow. We will, in fact, emerge from this pandemic. And the other side of this struggle, the other side of this darkness, is joy. But joy has no meaning without sadness. How important is darkness for our rest, for our recuperation, for our sleep? The human is not designed to live in light all the time. In fact, light all the time can be as bad for our mental health as darkness all the time can be. So we require these things in proper balance. So it's important to meditate on the necessity of opposites and to come to a place of acceptance. These dark moments, these low moments, these quiet moments amplify the opposite. They give them meaning. They give them power. Accept things as they are and know that there is always a swinging pendulum. And imagine what our lives would be like if there were no pendulum, if there were no swinging back and forth between these opposites. How boring would it be if the pendulum sat still in the middle without any motion? I think that boredom would be interminable. The next phrase, the wise one acts without moving, teaches without words. This is a recurring theme in the Way, in the Tao Te Ching, this doing without doing. And it is often a difficult concept to grasp, especially when we try hard to grasp it. It feels counterintuitive on the face of it, and the harder we apply our mind to understand it and to reconcile these opposites of doing and not doing, and how it could be possible that one could accomplish something without doing anything, the more elusive it becomes. So I would ask you to relax for a moment, and let's discuss some examples of how this comes alive in our lives. I have been in rooms in business and in my family, and you have as well, where there is a great tension in the room. There is conflict, there is anger, there is heated debate, emotions are running high. And one wishes to shift the energy of that. Now, one way to try to shift the energy is to attack it with the same energy that is already present in the room. One might say, I am sick and tired of all this arguing and I want everyone to shut up right now. What usually happens is it inflames people even further. So how can one shift the energy without doing something? The most important thing to do is to not participate in the energy at all. Being non-reactive, non-responsive emotionally, and centering oneself and one's energy in quiet, in stillness. And what begins to happen, particularly if you are a leader, is being the opposite of the energy that is swirling around in the room draws its own attention from everyone else in the room. Why is this person not being angry? Why is this person so calm when everyone else is losing their mind? And that question begins to circulate in the minds of everyone that you are surrounded by. And all of a sudden, the temperature begins to lower. You have done the opposite of what is happening. Instead of being loud, you are being quiet. Instead of being active, you are being still, and you become the bright, shiny object in that room. Angry people don't want to remain angry. Angry people want to resolve this energetic crisis that they're in and get to the other side of it. And when they see someone on the other side of it, it begins to lead them down the path toward that energetic state of calm. By doing nothing, you begin to set an example of how everyone else can be. If you begin to have loving thoughts about the people in the room, if you look at the person who is the most angry, the most demonstrative, the person who is acting out the most, and look at them with compassion. Look at them with compassion and non-reactivity, non-judgment, non-scolding. It is disruptive to their behavior. You are no longer adding fuel to that fire. Yet you have not done a thing. You have merely shifted your energy to stillness. That is how the wise one teaches without words. The next lines. The wise one allows things to occur, then leaves without regret. In our common language, we say, what is done is done. What has happened is past. I can't go back and undo the thing that has already been done. I have allowed what has happened to occur, trusting that I did my best or I did what I was capable of, given what I understand, the extent of my abilities, and the circumstances that I found myself in. I trust that I did what I could do, and I will move on from here. If for some reason, in retrospect, I say, I didn't do my best, I should have done this in a different way, then that is work for me to perform in the future. I can't look over my shoulder and change what happened, but what I can do is take the lessons and the learnings that I've gained from this experience and apply them moving forward. What's done is done. I have no control over what has occurred. I have control over what will happen next. And I will use what has happened to inform my future behavior. And if I fail yet again, I will learn even more. And I may fail 20 more times, but maybe I'm just kind of slow. And maybe I need to make this mistake that many times before it really lands on me that I must change. And then I do change. But I will allow this to occur. I will allow myself to be stubborn. I will allow myself to struggle with this lesson. I will allow that to occur. The next line, has but does not hold, gives without expectation. In the first verse, we talked about this, having but not holding. Again, this image of an open palm and a bird landing on our palm and sitting there. I have it, but I allow it to be itself. I respect its will. I respect its choice to be here with me. And I respect its choice to leave of its own volition. I will not squeeze it in my hand. I will not be driven by my desire to control this moment. I allow this moment to occur. I will have it, but I will not hold it. This clenched fist idea, this idea that I can control what is going on, is an illusion. Yet, I have influence. You know, one of the great questions in humankind is, are we living a self-determined existence or a fatalistic existence? Are we living an existence in which I am able to control everything that goes on in my life? Or am I living an existence in which everything is preordained, in which I am merely a passenger in this vehicle of life? I think it's both. It's both things at once. And the metaphor that I like to think about is being on a canoe in a river. We are in this canoe, our body, on the river of life. The river has a current. It is often very strong. And the river is going to go where it is going to go. Our canoe does not dictate the flow of the river. That flow was established long before we arrived here. We are merely riding on its current. But we have a paddle in hand, and to the extent that we can steer ourselves within that current, to the extent that when we see this current taking us toward a rock, that we can use our skill and our intention to steer ourselves away from that rock, there is our self-determinism. Otherwise, just putting your hands up and saying I'm heading toward it and I can't do anything. Well, if you surrender to that moment and don't take responsibility for the effect that you can have, then yes, indeed, you will crash into that rock. But we are given a paddle, our volition, our intention, and there is an enormous power in that. But that power is limited. When we are in a strong current, we cannot turn the canoe all the way around and paddle upstream against the current. The current is stronger than we are. It is larger, it is a larger force than we are as individuals. We allow things to occur, do what we can, and then move on without regret. And the next time we enter that stretch of the river, we know that just around the bend, there is a rock. And I will not crash into that rock this time. I will use this paddle to steer myself around it. Gives without expectation. That is the essence of altruism. There's a purity of intention when we give without expectation. Yet, every action has a reaction, an equal and opposite reaction. We know this from physics. So that the physics will in fact return something to us. It always does. But it doesn't always return something to us in the time frame that we expect it. Oftentimes the return action happens when we least expect it. Sometimes when we least expect it, yet most need it. So one does not need to expect any result from the giving when one knows that there will always be a result from this giving. So give with the purity of heart. Give without fear. Give without concern that this is a zero-sum game and everything that I am giving up is non-recoverable. Give with the knowledge that when we give to others, we give to ourselves. That what we do for ourselves, we do for the world. And with that knowledge, I no longer need any expectation because I have certainty that what I do returns to me. It encourages us to be as generous with our gifts, with our time, with our energy as possible. The last line, when her work is done, she forgets it, yet it endures forever. Again, it bears repeating. What is done is done. She will not live her life looking over her shoulder. She will forget it because focusing on what has happened distracts one's attention from what is going on in this moment. This very moment is pregnant with the possibility of everything we can ever want for ourselves. It is pregnant with the possibility that we can initiate the very first step toward our highest ambitions right now. That moment is living right now, yet if we are looking over our shoulder, we do not see that opportunity. We cannot place our energy in this moment to affect the change that we need in this moment in our lives. There have been so many times where I've been surprised by people who have come to me many, many years after I have last seen them and said, you said this to me many years ago, and it affected my life, and I wanted to thank you for it. And they will sometimes tell me what I told them, and honestly, many times I don't even remember having said it. Yet it stuck to them. And it did endure forever. It endured in their lives. It endured in their consciousness. You have done the same thing. You have said things, you have done things for others that they will never forget, even when you weren't intending for it to be a life lesson, even when you weren't intending for it to help them out of a difficult place, intending to help them identify a new path that they could take. The mere act that you were positive in your intention, you said something or did something without expectation, You just said it because it was the right thing to say, or did it because it was the right thing to do, and you forgot about it. Yet here you are, all these years later, and the effect of that action or that statement has endured. This is the second verse of the Way.